Yeah, boy, it's June 3rd and it's episode 167. And this is a Fantasy Auctioneer podcast. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast is the official podcast of the fantasyfootballauction.com, the internet's only website dedicated to fantasy football auctions. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at Fantasy Auction. We've got a great show for you tonight. We're going to answer some listener questions, and then we're going to move our way through a little bit about what we're doing right now as he goes. But of course, our analysts, they're always here. You just deleted, you stupid jerk. I'm reading the script. Slim. Nope, Blister. Whoever it was. Why are you guys messing with my script? All right, Blister's whining and complaining about his really expensive eye that isn't working very well for him tonight. Blister, how you doing tonight? Sure.
Good. Good. I saw the script and I changed it because I was the one that wrote in there about another wasted weekend for a kid birthday party and couldn't go fishing or golfing. But of course, the weather was too poor for that anyways. But so I thought, I better switch that around. So I'm going to like, what the hell are you talking about? I didn't have a birthday party. So then
I thought that was for Slim. Jeez.
I thought Anchorman's going to get this all.
Yeah, I was waiting. I could see typing stuff as he's reading. I knew it was gonna throw him.
Hey, just like the old veterans are at OTAs, shaking the dust off. That's kind of what we're doing here too. Anyways, Buster, how you doing tonight? You doing good? You doing good? Hey.
I'm fine. It was kind of lazy. I was going to write a bunch of stuff this weekend, but I will. This week I'll get some more articles, look for some breakout articles, bust articles, and bounce back articles. That's what I was working on. I had kind of a list of players I wanted to talk about, but I just got to put it on paper and put it on the website next.
There you go. And he's getting ready for exams. I don't even know what I'm going to say now. Slim, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I guess I am getting ready for exams. It's a couple weeks away, but doing good.
Yeah, doing good. Good. Yes. Awesome. Your kid hasn't peeked around the corner and want to talk on the mic yet?
No, I think he's finally asleep now.
He's sleeping?
He was anxious. He saw the headset. So long story here, but we moved him to the basement, and now he occupies a lot of my recreational area. So his bedtime overlaps our podcast time sometimes, and he sees the setup and he wonders what the headphones are for and wants to talk to whoever's not even on the other end yet. But so he was coming out of his room, peeking around the corner, seeing if I was starting yet or talking to anybody, and a little bit curious tonight.
Well, and my kids are so old now, they just roll their eyes. Are you podcasting again? Go outside. So that's I'm out here. So that's how life goes at Uncle Bucket's house. Anyways, we got a good show tonight. We're going to start with listener questions. So if you guys are ready, then I'm ready. Let's cock the hammer. It's time for action. All right, guys, we're going to start with some listener questions. So I brought them out last week. We're going to bring Blue's Clues out again this week. Guys, this segment's called We Just Got There. All right, so we got listener questions. They were all hit up from Twitter. So if you want to send any questions our way, we are at Fantasy Auction. The first one comes from at Ski in Abu Dhabi. Just a little side note, I also talked a little bit on the side to Ski in Abu Dhabi. Guess what the temperature was there yesterday?
In Abu Dhabi?
In Abu Dhabi.
104, 114.
Celsius. Come on, Celsius. Come on. I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit. This is you got to represent the Canadian. 46 degrees without the humidity. It was 46. And he lives on the ocean, so it'd be a little bit muggy there. So anyways, 46 degrees, 11 days until he leaves that godforsaken place. Anyways,
40.
Ski in Abu Dhabi. He asks this. We'll bounce back and forth between the two of us. So Slim, let's throw it to you first. How do you accommodate for coaching improvement for underperforming players from last season?
Well, this is a tough question because I don't know how you know it's a coaching improvement, but I guess we can assume, like, I'm trying to think of, I guess here's the thing. Everybody wants to anoint a lot of these coaches, and I'll speak as a Niners fan. You know, when Kyle Shanahan goes, "Oh, the the genius that is Kyle Shanahan comes over and is going to resurrect the franchise, and all of a sudden these players are going to be unbelievable and put in this magical game plan that's going to make everybody a stud. Anyway, I guess so. My thing with that is you can't fall in love with that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the players that are out in the field. It doesn't really matter what types of plays are being ran and things like that. Good players are going to find ways to succeed. Yes, there are ways that coaches can utilize talent maybe more efficiently or slightly more effectively. Ask Jeff Fisher versus Sean McVay, I suppose. But at the end of the day, we knew Todd Gurley was talented. It wasn't like you were completely avoiding him because, we didn't think he was any good. We just knew, okay, maybe he wasn't being used to the best of his potential. And did McVay help that? For sure. Did he make Todd Gurley any better? No, not really. Todd Gurley was already a stud. So I guess the biggest thing is try and look critically at what the scheme is and try and slot or figure out how these players are going to fill a certain role in that scheme. I don't think there's a magic potion that these coaches come in and all of a sudden just sprinkle on the players and turn them into top-notch talents. I mean, they're either good or they're not. So I just say take it with a grain of salt. I mean, trust the process that led you up to it. And how did you find players that you liked? Hopefully it was because there was some talent profile that spoke to you and that you believed in. And I would continue to trust that.
All right. So Blister, how about you? Are you taking a look at any of these quote unquote coaching improvements for underperforming players from last year?
Well, I don't necessarily look at the coaching improvements or changes according to underperforming players. I just look at the changes and what that system is, like Slim said, that they're going to bring to this offense. And obviously people want to come in and put their own mark on the team and try to make some changes and make some improvements. So far, from what I can see roughly, I think there's about 7 head coaching changes and about 17 offensive coordinator changes, which is kind of key. If the head coach is going to let the OC make the calls, then that's what you got to look at. And just a quick, I'm not going to go through everybody obviously, but a quick example of how that could have, I give you a quick off-air mention, but Arizona's got a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator. And prior to this year, when Arians was there, tight end really was a useless position in Arizona. Hopefully that changes this year, and hopefully Ricky Seals-Jones makes a big jump. And I think, like we said, we'll tie these things into auction values, but right now I'm sure you could get Ricky Seals-Jones for $1 in your auction. But hopefully with the new OC there,
and does he have a
lot more passes,
country album or something? Sounds like a country singer, Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yeah.
Ricky Seals-Jones, he's opening up for Garth Brooks. Anyway, sorry.
Another one, quick one. Hopefully, maybe in Carolina they hired Norv Turner. I don't really care for Norv, but every time he goes somewhere, everyone figures that the tight end and the running backs are going to catch a lot more passes. And I think Greg Olsen coming back to the offense, he missed most of the year last year, hurt. I think he will catch a lot of passes. Christian McCaffrey had a huge number of passes last year. We'll get into that later. But two of the ones I think most interesting, I think in Chicago. New head coach Matt Nagy, a new offensive coordinator, and I think that's going to be. They're in a division with them. The Vikings, pretty powerful. The Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford. They need to have a good offense. They need to utilize those weapons as best they possibly can. So I think those changes are going to be good for Trubisky. I think that's going to be good for that offense, and I think they're going to have a little more exciting team than they've had in the past. So. All those players, I mean, when you look at it, when you start talking about teams and auction values, everything's going to change so much between now and August when you draft. If you're drafting now is when you can get steals if you're doing your homework and listen to these podcasts. But by the time August rolls around, things are going to start to take shape, and you're going to know who's going to be getting the targets and who's going to be the number 1, number 2, and who's, things like that. So then all of a sudden their values are going to become prices are going to go up for a lot of people. But I think that offense is something to keep an eye on. And the other one is Tennessee, new head coach, and
we're on
new
the
offensive
same page,
coordinator.
man. Those are my two tops too.
Oh yeah. Well, LaFleur comes over there, and he was just with McVay, and prior to that, he was with Shanahan. So he knows those offenses and how they roll. And everyone was talking about why would he go and be the offensive coordinator in Tennessee when he was the offensive coordinator already somewhere. It was seems like a lateral move, but he really had not. He didn't have a lot of say in the play calling, and he had no chance of advancing his career in that organization at that position. You know, he would have been behind Shanahan prior to that, or he would have been behind McVay, who did awesome last year. So he sees an opportunity. So I think that offense, Mariota, all the weapons that he has, Delaney Walker, even though he's aging, he should be a stud tight end again this year, or Jonnu Smith. He's a young guy that if he has to step in, I think he'll do fine. But you know, all those are examples of when you have a coaching change, kind of guys to keep an eye on it. And again, with Tennessee, you're not looking at any names that are going to cost you $75 or something like a David Johnson in Arizona or Le'Veon Bell. But there's going to be some really quality players that you could probably get a really good value on come draft day.
And I was also thinking when looking at this question too, not guys like, you know, Todd Gurley, but more of those middling guys or your low-end wide receiver threes. I think that the coaching changes affect those guys. Now, of course, I can't think of someone off the top of my head as an example, but I'm just thinking like maybe it's not the studs. The studs are always the studs, but maybe some of those guys that are a little bit of a dud, depending on schemes and the quote-unquote coaching improvements, maybe those are the guys that become highlighted a little bit more as guys you might be taking late in your draft. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, for example, maybe Todd Haley leaves Pittsburgh, goes to Cleveland. Sorry.
Yeah.
No. But Todd Haley goes there. And if you think about Pittsburgh's offense the last couple of years, you know, obviously Antonio Brown and Lev Bell are the big pieces, but there's games where Martavis Bryant was huge last year. Juju Smith-Schuster comes onto the scene. Eli Rogers had some good games in a PPR format for them before. So now if he goes to Cleveland, and once that starts to shake down, who's it going to be? They got Landry there, and they got Coleman and Josh Gordon, and they have a lot of capable guys, but maybe that second and third guy is more involved in the offense, and they got a lot of question marks, of course, with their quarterback, how they're going to play. But that's an example, where deeper down the depth chart, guys might have a bigger role.
Do you have something to add there, Slim?
Well, I was going to say the obvious guy that in talking kind of examples like that to me steps out this year is Tariq Cohen. You know, Nagy comes from Kansas City where they had a guy like Tyreek Hill. It kind of seems like the worst kept secret to just about anybody, you know, that's on Twitter or whatever. Like he's this common Cohen, this common kind of breakout candidate, I guess, call him, you know, because Nagy found a way to kind of get this Swiss Army knife type player with all kinds of speed and shiftiness in Tyreek Hill. He kind of made him pretty viable in terms of fantasy and real football. So then now who do the Bears have that was underused by a kind of archaic ex-coach that they had there in John Fox that possesses some of these similar traits, and all of a sudden it's, hey, Tariq Cohen, he's got speed and he's electric in space and he can catch the ball and he's kind of the Swiss Army knife. And now again, trying to put, you know, 2 and 2 together and connect some of these dots, all of a sudden Tariq Cohen has become this popular breakout candidate based on a lot of these other analysts doing the exact same thing that our question asker was, you know, contemplating himself. So yeah, it's not, you know, does it always work out? No, not always. I mean, a lot of times we've been burned as a fantasy football community. I can think of players that we've been high on collectively and they've never, you know, for whatever reason didn't really pan out. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the time there's a lot of common thought here, just connecting some of these dots.
All right. So did we answer the front end of that question? How do you accommodate? Like, I feel like we talked a lot about the, you know, what we think about coaching changes and those types of things, but
I'm not sure that was the word choice was. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure.
I feel like we answered it, but I don't know.
Okay. Okay. I just didn't want to hear back like, hey, but you didn't really answer my question. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say, if at Ski in Abu Dhabi, you know, there's something else you want added, feel free to ask, and we will get back to you.
The heat got him.
The heat got him. Yeah, there you go. All right. So he was tweeting at Fantasy Auction. So we got another one tweeting at Fantasy Auction. This is at Felkberg. Felkberg is asking, with a $200 budget, does he keep an $8 Andrew Luck, or does he explore trade options? Your turn, Blister. Go.
Well, I think it's pretty safe to let Andrew slide for now.
Christopher Columbus, that shit. Start exploring.
He's over. I can't remember the day now. I'm going to throw a stab. It's going to be close, but 530 days since he's thrown a football, apparently, which is a long time. So
is that a real number? Just pull that out.
No, it was
the last time I threw a football, I think.
518 the other day. I can't remember how long ago I heard that though, so it could be around 530 now. But you know what? There's so many guys out there, and for $8, if you let him go and you drafted in July, you could probably buy him back for $2. And if you let him go and you drafted in late August or September, and he comes back and he starts throwing 50-yard, 60-yard bombs down the field, then it might cost you more than $8. But in the meantime, there's a lot of good quarterbacks you could have for probably $8 or less. And so I wouldn't hold on to him. I think it's just, he has to do something. And there's a lot of guys out there that can. So until he does come back and show us something, then there's no sense holding. I mean, I'm not totally against him. He was not that long ago the number 1 overall quarterback in fantasy. And 1 year, about 2 years later, I think he was number 4. So there's that potential is there. But right now it's kind of risky because he hasn't done anything for so long.
Yeah, well, exactly. How about you, Slim? What are you thinking as far as keeping?
I'm thinking this is the perfect spot. I know you've been sitting on this for a long time for you to insert the Duck Dynasty voice little thing. He gone. Get rid of him.
I'll try to remember that.
I completely agree with Blister. I mean, we said this last year. I remember this distinctively from last year. Do not draft this guy in any draft until you've seen him throwing a football. And this was our biggest fear last year, and it came to fruition. Dude didn't play, goes to Europe to whatever, take some experimental therapy of some kind. I don't know what it is. Can only speculate. Never a good sign, no matter what. Hopefully he's got somebody screening his piss for him. Maybe, I don't know. Not gonna say anything. But anyway, he's still not throwing. I do not want a quarterback as the backbone of my team. I mean, at $8, obviously he's not a backbone, but like, I don't know. We talked about this last week, and I remember Blister bringing this up last week, that quarterback is maybe the deepest it's ever been in recent years here, maybe in the last 10 years. So get rid of him. You can find a guy probably for $1 or $2 that's going to, do pretty close to what Luck does, assuming Luck is healthy. And that's a big if right now. So save your $8, get rid of him, go into the draft, set up a budget for a couple bucks in a 1 QB league, and spend it elsewhere. Anywhere.
Right, or yeah, you could drop him, and probably if you're drafting right away, you could, if you really thought he was coming back and had some inside information, you could buy him for $1. So they could save that $7 and turn it into somebody else. But he could be your backup if you wanted, if you had a deep enough bench for $1.
Yeah, like if it's I'm just looking across. Fantasy Pros has some auction values out. There's not a lot out there because there's not a lot of mocks. But if you were going to do an $8 Andrew Luck, what about what a $3 Phillip Rivers and trains blasting behind me. $3 Phillip Rivers and a
doesn't even matter how you say.
$6 Marlon Mack or a
whatever. Yes.
You know what I mean? Or a $3 Alan Hearns. With right?
It doesn't even matter what you say after that $3 Rivers. Like, yeah, exactly. Or, and then the second half, or explore trade options. Like, I don't know. maybe this isn't a 1 QB league. It wasn't specified. If it's a 1 QB league, there is no way I'm going and looking to trade for another quarterback. I mean, assuming it's a 12-team, 1 QB league, how many guys are keeping more than one quarterback? If it's a keeper league, I don't know. If they are, then okay. But even then, I mean, I'd be totally fine going and drafting somebody. I don't think I'd need to really go and trade for something like that. But I don't know. We don't know the real specifics of the league, but that's just what my gut's telling me.
Sure, I'm looking across auction values, just keeper values here. Then I don't know if they're keeper values, but let's just say $8 for Andrew Luck. What about Kelvin Benjamin is at $8 right now, according to, like, is that worth more than, like, I mean, you could draft that. I mean, just as an example, what do you think there? Or what about
I'd rather have Kelvin
Duke Johnson, Tariq Cohen?
Yeah, I'd rather have all those guys.
Me too.
I even see Darius Geis here as an $8 guy.
Really? Eh?
Yeah, Darius Geis or Tevin Coleman or
check. Yep, give me them all.
Will Fuller for $7. Yeah, all right. Yes. I'll do $1 Phillip Rivers and a $7 Will Fuller.
Yes. Yep.
So I think that about sums it up.
This guy gets you 0 on the season still. We're forgetting that. Like, so yes, I'll take any of those guys because they are most likely not going to get me a 0. Like, I don't know. There's just too much risk still. And we're not even talking about big money here. Like, is that a decent keeper price for Luck? Yeah, that's not terrible. I mean, but in a 1 QB league, I'll be honest, man, I very rarely even keep quarterbacks in keeper leagues in a 1 QB keeper league. So, I mean, doesn't really matter who I have. I'm a streaming guy though, so you should be too. But anyway.
Right. And I mean, on that notice, streaming guys, I mean, let's take a look at the bottom of this barrel. Mahomes at $1, Goff at $1, Mariota $1, Winston $2, Matt Ryan $2.
Yeah,
like there's 5 guys right there that might actually throw a football this year. Not to mention even Bortles, who was
they will throw a football, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So
Eli Manning ranked right now on this as QB 26.
Yeah, give me Eli for $1. I could live with that.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw a funny tweet about that. Speaking of Eli going a tangent, it was like Odell Beckham. Everybody loves him. Everybody loves Saquon. Everybody loves Evan Ingram. Everybody. It was just listing all these giant skill position players that everybody's loving right now, and then Eli's a piece of shit.
Well,
okay, something's gotta
something's not right here.
But kind of made me laugh. Like, yeah, actually, that's kind of how I feel too. But anyway.
All right. Well, keeping on the quarterback bandwagon here, or train, I guess. Sorry. Speaking of the train sounding as it's crossing the point behind me. Last Twitter question was at Schaefer 15. Now this is another quarterback. This is now 2 QB. So how do you adjust quarterback auction values for a 2 QB league? And then the second part of the question, what would you change in your draft strategy for that 2 QB? So let's start with the first one. How do you adjust your values, Blister, for 2 QBs?
Well, the quarterback value does go up. I feel like we talked about this one time, and I can't remember what the percentage was.
I wrote an article last year about it.
Good.
Oh.
There's an article.
Let's pull that bad boy up. Let's
go for it, Slim. Take over.
Okay, you do the second part then. Okay. So when I kind of crunched the numbers a little bit, I mean, there's not much to it. Like, there's no crazy, I don't think, math. I think in a 2 QB league, and even a super flex, you're looking at the top quarterback is going to be roughly the same price as the top skill position players. So the example I used was Aaron Rodgers. Say in your regular auction league, he goes for maybe $35 or something like that, which, I mean, not to say we advocate for that, but that's probably an average price for him. We all know in skill position guys, there's usually a guy that's going for 60 plus. So that would stand to reason that a guy like Aaron Rodgers needs to go from 35 to 65. So whatever you think he goes for, or should be going for, or typically goes for, kind of find the factor that bumps him up to 65. So if we use like a $35 to a $65, all you kind of do is use this 1.86, it works out to be, difference, and apply that to every quarterback then in your draft. Now, is it going to be 100% accurate? Maybe not, but it's going to give you at least a decent ballpark, pretty close.
Right.
So I think that at least gives you a jumping off point for where the top guys should go for. And important thing to remember is near the bottom, it's not, quarterbacks are not going to be like, your wide receivers and running backs, where you cannot get the QB 24, like say the last starting quarterback. Like he's not going to go for $1. So
Right.
you're going to have to, for multiple quarterbacks, you're going to have to probably budget, more than that. You can't think of it just like it's a bench spot in your typical one quarterback leagues, obviously. So you're going to actually have to spend some cake on that second quarterback as well, and you're going to have to make sure that goes into your budget. That's, I kind of like 2 QB leagues are fun in auction because it really changes how you have to budget. Because when you start having to pay bigger money at quarterback, it really starts taking away from things elsewhere, and you have to really make some concessions sometimes other places. So it's kind of interesting to see how teams, what the makeups of some teams end up being based on what choices they make at the quarterback position.
And so that was from an article, some I've got it pulled up here, 2 QB and Superflex League, 6 things you need to know, off of our website, thefantasyfootballauction.com. You listed 6 different things there. Members got to read all 6, and we should make sure we update that with some more current values and heading into this season. That was a July 12th addition to the website, just as an FYI, so almost a year from now. Anyways, so Blister, like, what do you think? How does it change your strategy then if you got 2 QBs?
Well, I think it's pretty important when you have 2 QBs to try to get one pretty solid one. Like, we used to say a tier 1, but I think with the depth that we have now, I think if you could get one of the top 10 QBs, I think you'd be in great shape. I don't like waiting. It hasn't done me as well to wait and get a bunch of guys that are dollar quarterbacks to try to win a league. There's enough difference between that. When you're going to 2 QB league, you're looking at least 24 quarterbacks off the board. So it's nice to have one that's probably a top 10 or so, and then get your other one down the road from that. So, I mean, I'll spend a little bit more. I might not spend on the top ones like Rodgers or Brady, Breeze, guys like that, but I might go after a Wentz or a Stafford, and then get a second one like a Dalton or a Tannehill or something like that. A couple of guys that are going to start and be fairly solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking, Slimmin, I mean, I'm following kind of the same suit as Blister here. That idea of drafting one of those higher end guys, and I think that it's more about drafting that high floor, and then with guy number 2 drafting the high ceiling. So at least you have some consistency. And if that second QB, well, I mean, you could even be going for a third QB, let's be honest here, right? Is crap in the bed, then worst case scenario, you hit on somebody else and you don't even run in that super flex, run that crappy quarterback. I mean, I know it hurts sometimes, but high floor, first guy, high ceiling, second guy is my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of like that too. I mean, I just feel like it's a safe way to, I don't know. I mean, again, too, it comes down with values. I mean, you got to look at guys that you might like more than consensus and try and maybe sneak a few bucks here and there. But this is a perfect year to do stuff like that, I think, because it's going to be so jumbled. Like, you could talk to a guy, say with, say Pat Mahomes or Marcus Mariota or something like that. Some guys might have them as their QB, 20. Whereas the next guy beside you might have one of those guys or maybe 2 of those guys as, their QB 5 and 6. So yeah, it's going to be very owner dependent. But yeah, I kind of like trying to secure somebody that I feel is going to be pretty steady week in, week out. And then if I really want to take some dart throws and go cheap, maybe I do that with, like you said, I like having 3 in a 2 QB league.
Yeah.
Even if one's a rookie that I don't expect to maybe start immediately. So like a guy like,
Rosen or somebody.
I was going to say, if Cleveland struggles early, which, I don't think anyone projects them to win too many games still. Yeah. I mean, there's probably going to be some struggles. Then the coaching staff is probably going to be prone to wanting to make a switch. Like he's a guy you could probably get really, really cheap if you roll the dice on him as your third quarterback. I mean, there's always going to be a few injuries. If you play the waiver wire, you should be able to snag another guy that jumps into a starting role that no one projected to at the start of the year. And you can usually make out okay doing something like that if you know you're going to be active on waivers. But yeah, I think you kind of want to, as much as it hurts sometimes, it's a different beast, those 2 QB leagues, man. You have to pay up to get at least one pretty consistent body there.
So Blister, then like where do you steal that money from if you're going to pay for, like, spend more money on quarterbacks? Are you going to vulture that out of, like, pull that out of your running backs, your wide receivers? Are you going to stream a tight end? Like, where are you getting that extra money to get that top QB?
So that's usually what I would do. I would probably spend less on tight end, and then steal from my back end RB2, RB3. Definitely have a little less on the bench, wide receiver 2 or 3 as well. Still want to get a pretty quality player up front at those positions, but I would definitely take it from that area and make sure my bench is probably more so dollar guys, not any $7 or $8 guys, stuff like that.
And what do you think happens in these 2 QB auctions? What, like, the overall values of quarterbacks obviously go up, but then I mean, those top tier guys in other positions have got to come down. I mean, it's just the laws of the $200 budget.
Well, that's it. The top guys don't. I mean, you want Lev Bell, he's still going to cost you, right? But you're right. There's only so much money to go around. So as bigger chunks of budgets, get spent, there's only so many dollars left. Everyone has to start tightening the purse strings. And like Blister said, most people are going to start trying to save on their RB2s and on their bench and things like that. And, you're going to start seeing the cliff usually fall a little bit steeper than you would in, a 1 QB league. Because after those top guys are gone at receiver and running back, then, no one really wants to pay up to go and get, the RB18 because they probably have 5 guys on their list that they think, they all kind of probably project to score roughly the same amount of points. There's no point in me overspending on any of those guys. So I think the bottom falls out pretty quick.
Right. Yeah. And Blister, I like that idea of the stars and scrubs, I guess, would be the approach, right? You can really scrape together some extra dollars to pay up for your RB1 or your wide receiver 1 if you just like trash the bench, I guess. Really do your homework on flyers and keep those guys kind of sit on your bench.
Yeah, exactly. And I think right now, like, again, we probably said this 3 times now, but drafting now or in another month from now, your bench could be pretty good with cheap players. Like your bench, the same guys would cost you probably a lot more drafting in August than what you could get now or in first half of July. I'm thinking of some really quality players that you can have when you're drafting. Doesn't just because you might have only spent $8 on your 8 bench players, maybe because it's early and nobody's done their research in July in late August, early September, when a lot of other people are drafting, those 8 guys could cost $24 or something like that. So something to keep in mind.
Right. And that's where those guys that are listening to podcasts now obviously would benefit from drafting a little bit earlier than the guys that aren't listening to stuff like this, that are in your league, because the magazine's not out yet, so they, heaven forbid, they draft at this point, right?
Yeah, if you're thinking about starting up an auction league and you're listening to this, start it now.
That's true. It's true.
You guys will just be scrambling.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. We've never done auction before. I'm thinking about doing one. How about mid-June? Wow,
Yeah.
that guy from Football Diehards magazine, he hasn't finished the editorial yet. I can't. I don't know what to do.
This is Des Bryant for 45. Sold. Wow, what a steal.
Yeah, no kidding, right? What do you mean he's not with the Cowboys anymore? Isn't he? Right? Alan Hearns.
Blue Bombers? What the hell?
Yeah. I'll take Johnny Manziel. I heard, actually, speaking of that, because we are, the little Canadiana, Johnny Manziel's number 2 right now, I think, on the depth chart with the Ticats. Thought I saw that somewhere.
I actually watched part of that game just to watch him play.
You?
Yeah. He was the number 2. I only watched, I can't even remember if it was a full series. Actually, it's funny because my wife was on the couch, and I'm actually giving her credit. I flipped the channel to the game, and she saw him, and she remembered, and she was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, really?" And she goes, "He's playing on Hamilton right now." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I can't believe you actually remember Johnny Manziel." I'm like, so anyway, she kind of started talking about like what the hell happened, and it's kind of nice to have a little football chat there like that. But yeah,
that doesn't happen in my house.
You know what? He didn't look. I mean, it was one drive, and CFL like 2 and out.
Yeah,
the receiver dropped he scrambles in the pocket, makes a nice pass to the receiver, who completely drops it, and then that was kind of when I switched. Actually, it was halftime, I think. And then I listened to
which is why that guy's number 2, that receiver's number 2 on the depth chart in Hamilton.
Okay, no, they were saying, and I didn't know this. I mean, I don't watch CFL, but I stuck around to watch the beginning of the halftime show. So in the CFL now, they do not let teams have any hitting in practice. And so I guess the receivers on Hamilton that Manziel was thrown to, they had a lot of drops. And these guys were saying, it's probably because they haven't had to do any of this in practice. Like, you're right, footsteps. They haven't had to worry about getting drilled, and now all of a sudden they're playing a real team who's got guys that are fighting for jobs too. And now, they're
old alligator
stuff, and that's right, exactly.
T-Rex.
So anyway, he didn't look terrible though.
Didn't look terrible. Well, there you go. Yeah. I run directly, so I do get CFL stuff on the NFL network from time to time, but I don't get to see a whole lot. So every now and again when I watch it. Good Morning Football, they'll talk a little bit about things like Johnny Manziel in the CFL. So
yeah.
But anyways. So anything else to add with 2 QB leagues, guys?
Nope.
Buster?
I got nothing.
You got nothing? Hey, you know what? Now, I know this is a little bit short, but I'm thinking to myself, if we get into something else, it's going to go way too long. And then I'm going to be up way too late trying to edit this way. If I'm going to try to spend a little bit of extra time tonight dropping in the Duck Dynasties and maybe some stuff at the front end there like I used to in the old days when I felt young and spry. What do you think? I mean, we're at about the 40-minute mark.
Whatever. I don't know.
Anybody?
Oh, sorry.
I just asked the questions that are asked.
We did answer the questions.
What about the prep question? You want to do that real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, let's do that then. Okay, so Slim, Slim, you just talked about CFL, so let's go to Blister. Blister, what are you doing right now outside of, I guess, being part of a podcast to help you get yourself ready for auctions coming up in the fall?
Well, glad you asked that, Shane.
Well, that's good. I mean, I don't know where I came up with that question.
Actually, I'm doing it. Well, the reason I think I mentioned before, but what I was excited about, the fact that we were potting meant that I had to get my butt in gear and start doing some research and start reading and start putting some stuff together. Because when I do that for the website, that helps me prepare for my drafts. So
sure.
like I said, I kind of did an early set of tiers already for the site. I did our rankings. I added a bunch of players to them. I'm not sure if you noticed that.
Yeah, and it's there too. Yeah,
I got some. Started all the teams in the AFC. I like to take a look at who left the team, who's been added, who their draft picks were, who a potential breakout could be for that team, who the studs are perhaps, and why I think they'll still be or not be. So I kind of identify a few more players in there and a couple notes. So that all goes on the website. So people that are starting to think, or maybe they listen to this podcast a month from now, they'll know that information is on the website. And this week, I should get to it this week, but I'm going to look at bounce back players. Maybe they didn't have a great season last year, breakout players, and also busts. Some guys that might have been great last year that could bring down a high dollar in your auction that I wouldn't spend the money on. So doing all that prep work for our stuff helps me get ready. And then I'll start doing some mock auctions in a little while. I think we have the Scott Fish Bowl coming up first week of July that starts. So the three of us will be busy with that. And we've had we had a rookie draft already for our dynasty, and you and I have our we've had how many rounds? 15 rounds of drafting for our ECL league. So that's a fun one as well. So I mean, those things are great because when you do it, like, you can stay on top of things, and it helps for our coming up our regular leagues that we have all summer that we start in August. All this prep, all these drafts, all this research, and all the homework we do for our own website helps us be prepared for that. So that's basically what I do.
All right, Slim, how about you? What are you doing right now outside of having a beer and scratching your nuts?
Well, that's actually beer. I won't show you my nuts, but
thank you for
very good. No, I'm doing a lot of the same thing. My first thing I'm doing is I'm just trying to gather my info, looking at depth charts, trying to assess, maybe some coaching staff changes, where these rookies end up, just trying and figure out who's going to get targets and volume and touches coming up next year. Then it's going about and ranking and tiering guys. It's going to be a real mess early. You're going to have to do a lot of moving around over the next couple months, but it's nice to get this baseline of guys that you maybe slot in with higher priced guys. You can see where values are going to start to fall. Trying to identify some kind of roster construction strategies and things based on how these values are playing out. And the next thing I like to do is then start highlighting guys in tiers that I don't like, that just I feel like are overpriced. If it's on a spreadsheet, you just give them a nice little dark blue color or something like that you can remember. Those start to become very nice guys when you start figuring out nomination strategies and things that you start toying with, trying to kick out and seeing what the interest is amongst other people. I mean, if it's a guy you don't like that everyone else kind of likes, it's a perfect guy you want to nominate early maybe. Then that's about it. And then it's just about tweaking, trying to build the best rosters you can, coming up with a couple budgets that you like. And again, fine tuning that nomination strategy and just, trying to end up with as many quality players that you think are going to have, upside or consistency, however you like to build your squad.
Well, for me, it's not so much auction specific stuff. It's just redraft type stuff. So just trying to get that wide range of information from a lot of different sources. So yeah, drinking my morning coffee and watching the Little NFL Network, or when I'm on the drive, maybe it's listening to Little Ross Tucker on the Sirius.
Oh yeah.
Listen, like I had RotoViz on second year breakouts. Okay, well that's kind of interesting. Listening to the data behind some of that.
Yep, for sure. Info. I
think it's kind of interesting too. I've just been thinking about is looking back at the last few months, and not just you, Slim, because you do offer me trades and those types of things, but if you're drafting with some of those dynasty guys that you're, if you're in league with other guys, and let's say you have a dynasty league with some of the other guys you're doing in your draft, who are they always trying to pull off of you, right? Like, who are they always trying to get? Is it always that Mike Evans, or is it always that whatever? And I think that you can be a little bit savvy that way at looking at what your opponent's roster constructions could be, or guys who they might be targeting if they're trying to pick at your roster. You know what I mean? I know that that's that versus redraft, but it still shows you guys they like. I mean, because they're not digging for Jeff Janis, right? They're digging for, if it's like I say, Mike Evans, or it's Chris Thompson, or it's those types of guys. Like, who are they looking for? And you can kind of have a little idea for who your buddies like.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, you can see who guys in your league, especially in home leagues, are going to probably think are values. If they're coming after, a couple of these wide receiver 4s that you have, there's a good chance that they're going to look at trying to stash one of those guys, when you go to do your auction draft in a couple of weeks. And not even saying you go and get one of them. Maybe you're just that guy that bids them up a few extra bucks, knowing like, I know he's going to keep bidding on this guy because he's been after him for me in our dynasty home league for whatever. And yeah, that's a nice little nugget. Another one I was going to say, that's something I've been doing more so this year, a little bit last year, was looking at a lot of the Vegas lines on things, namely like win totals and stuff. Just trying to look and see, like, if a team is going to be bad, for example, or Vegas projects them to be bad in terms of win total, it kind of stands to reason that they're probably going to be playing from behind a lot. So how does that
negative game script?
Exactly. How does that change how certain players on that team might be used? For example, if there's personnel on there that are used more in, the 4-minute drill or 2-minute drill, those guys probably get a little uptick in value because, if a team's playing from behind, they're probably passing to this PPR running back a little bit more, or that guy might be on the field a little bit more than that plotter that just likes to put his head between the tackles and kind of, get yards that way. So just little things like that, trying to look for some kind of advantage that you can maybe exploit to try and find value.
And Blister, do you do any, I just said off-season stuff, MFL 10s? Are you just, are you drafting in any sort of FFPC stuff? Or is any of those things come into play during your prep?
For me?
Blister, you're the guy who drafts in like 1,000 leagues. That's why.
I'm not sure. Pardon? I got off, but
pardon?
I'll say pardon. Yeah, usually I haven't done any of them yet, other than drafts that we've been in together. But usually I do have a few different drafts, whether they're MFLs or FFPC. And what else was there? Well, we had the data force, but I haven't done that either since. But yeah, usually I like to do those things too, just to kind of get a feel where it seems to make more sense when people are putting real money on play and on it than just doing a mock draft. Mock drafts can be frustrating, especially auctions, because it's so hard to get 12 people to stick around and do it unless, our listeners are good. If we tell them we're going to have one, and most of the time those guys will show up and we can have one. But if you just go on a random night, I got a little bit of time to kill, I'm going to go on an auction draft, and it's like, 3 hours later and 1,000 computer bids, it's not that fun.
Yeah, well, and that's where I like to kind of use those MFL 10s. I don't do a ton. I'm not crazy like some of those guys that are, spending thousands doing MFLs. But even if it's a handful over the summer as prep, just to see where real life guys like to draft real life guys, right? I think that that's valuable to know where, where the general public is valuing these guys. And that kind of helps me in my tiers, or helps me in setup in some of those other strategies like nominations and those types of things.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah. It forces me to prep too. I like that too. Like if I'm going to get a FL, then all of a sudden I have to have my rankings done or my tiers done or something like that, so that I have something in front of me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of the things we're doing over the next few months. And as we say, we are constantly talking about what we're doing to prep too. And a lot of times it comes back to, and you hear us say it over and over again, it's creating tiers and creating tiers and creating tiers and tweaking those over and over again. So, I mean, we preach that all summer long. We preach that heading into the fall. You gotta tier your players. We're big advocates of auction drafting tiers. and finding value within those tiers. So if anything, guys, I think that's one thing we consistently preach for prep.
I agree. Yes.
All right. Good. All right. So guys, so that was a little bit bonus, and now we're pushing us to the hour mark. So I like that too. Makes it a little bit more consistent. So we'll next Sunday possibly Slim with a guest. Or
yeah, we're working on bringing in a couple guests here in the next little while here, just as some kind of early auction stuff. So yeah, keep an ear out for that.
Right.
We're trying to just line up some schedules here right now, actually, see if we can make something work here.
And Blister and I will be in the T-Dot school tripping. Blister, what Blue Jays game are you going to?
Sunday, a week from now, Baltimore, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's Sunday. Sure. We're going to. Maybe I'll see you upstairs.
Absolutely, you know where I'll be.
Yeah. All right.
Is there a good bathroom there or something?
Yeah, it's a great bathroom. It's a quiet little one. You can go in and after that great big. Have you ever got those giant hot dogs there, Blister? They're like a full meal on a hot dog.
I can't say that I have.
Wow, I mean, it's a full meal going in, it's a full meal going out. So the quiet bathroom's a good thing to know. Well, we'll talk to Mikey. Maybe he can set us up with a staff bathroom or something like that at the game.
Really lovely.
Oh, easy.
Yeah. Well, hey, Blister, did you have a note? Speaking of Mikey, left on your desk there the other day about missing you or something or other. Mickey was in bringing treats.
Yeah,
and
I saw that. Yeah,
I left Blister a little note. He won't know it's from me.
I knew it was from her because I missed them because I had to go to Nestor, but they were in Nestor. We must have passed on the road somewhere. I didn't even notice.
No, that's what she said. And her buddy from the royal wedding. Anyways, that's a whole nother podcast. Anyways, guys, okay. Anyways, we'll leave that alone. All right, guys, we're wrapping it up here around the hour mark. Blister knows what I'm talking about. Slim has no idea what we're talking about, but that's okay. We work in the elementary system. Anyways, so Blister, maybe I'll see you at the Jays O's game, and Slim, I just see you here. So maybe I'll see you next time we're on the podcast. And for everybody else, I'll see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.